So the Aaron Rodgers rumors are really starting to heat up in Pittsburgh, and people have very mixed opinions. Some talk about how getting Aaron Rodgers could be disastrous for the Steelers culture because he doesn't prepare in the offseason and he never takes accountability, while another NFL insider basically called out Steelers fans, saying that the ones that are wanting Mike Tomlin fired are the same people saying all sorts of negative things about Aaron Rodgers. Basically, that insider was just calling out spoiled fans. Here were the exact words. I would say to those who are reluctant to embrace Aaron Rodgers, the same thing I'd say to those who want to fire Mike Tomlin, Florio said, as shared by Troy Montgomery of Steelers Depot. Have you lost your minds? I think Steelers fans should be thrilled with the chance of adding a guy who can come in and actually play quarterback the way that the coaching staff intends it to be played. And at a level that a lot of guys out there can't play at. And there's definitely not a lot of guys you can just go pluck in free agency who will come in and play the way you need the position to be played to complement everything else the Steelers do well. I think what this insider was saying was a little too strong. I don't think Steelers fans are actually in the wrong at all for being skeptical about a decision for the Steelers to bring in Aaron Rodgers. I think there could be some pros to this move and also a lot of cons, and I want to talk all about it. But before I get into everything, I would really appreciate it if you would drop a like and subscribe. It only takes 5 seconds, plus you can always change your mind. We are on the road to 50,000 subscribers, and with your support, I believe that we can get there super fast. Alright, so Aaron Rodgers' conversation with Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith during a recent lengthy meeting reportedly went very well, but there nevertheless are legitimate reasons one may feel the 41-year-old can't play quarterback the way that the coaching staff intended to be played this coming fall. For starters, Rodgers hasn't completed what could be considered a good season since he became a 4-time NFL MVP back in 2021. But one reason why the Steelers would obviously consider Rodgers is because they literally do not have a QB. Justin Fields went to the Jets and Russell Wilson is still making his decision, but it seems like he's not going to end up in Pittsburgh. I know there is the draft coming up, but I don't think it would be terrible to just have A-Rod behind center for a year, or at least for the beginning of the season, and then to draft a guy like Jackson Dart in the late first round. I don't think that would be a bad situation at all, and that gives DK Metcalf something to work with. But even better than Aaron Rodgers, if I was a Steelers fan, even if this is unrealistic right now, I would like to see a trade happen for Joe Milton, even with the competition of other teams and potentially a high asking price. Even if they added another veteran to the room, Milton could be a low-risk acquisition to come in and compete for the starting job over the summer. Given his ability to throw the football a country mile, he'd be fascinating to see with DK Metcalf and George Pickens at his disposal. And even if Milton ends up coming in and starts learning behind Rodgers for a year, that would benefit Milton for sure, who could compete for a starting job next year. And with Metcalf and Pat Freiermuth around long term, he should have weapons as well as a young growing offensive line, and getting Milton would give the Steelers options, which is the most important thing here, right? Because then they would not have to waste an early draft pick on a quarterback if they truly don't like the ones available in this year's class, and they can invest the pick into another position. Milton came out of Tennessee as a strong-armed but raw quarterback. In his one game of playing time with the Patriots, he impressed a lot of people, throwing for 241 yards and 1 touchdown while completing 75.9% of his passes. And I really do think if he was traded for and plugged into the Steelers system after a few games to learn and get a feel for things, he would thrive. Because really the only knock on this team over the last few seasons is that they have just not had weapons. Last year Pickens was kind of it sometimes, but now when you add DK Metcalf to the equation, that changes everything. He is a guy that can go up and can make a one-on-one contested catch. He's like the last resort, last hope type of guy that every quarterback wants and needs. And I really like Calvin Austin as well. CA3 did a lot of good things last year. He was a phenomenal route runner. He got so wide open many times last year if you looked at the film, but Fields or Russ, mainly Fields, did not throw him the football. But if you really think about it, he basically had a game-winning catch against Cleveland. He had a few toe tappers late in the season. He had a great catch over the middle of the field in the playoffs. Honestly, he is your perfect upside wide receiver. He just needs to develop some synergy with whoever is going to be under center, because Fields was not it. And for really what may be the most important thing for the Steelers in 2025, if there is going to be a QB overhaul, the backfield has to be reliable to provide some stability, and the O-line has to be great. That is if the Steelers are planning on having another successful season and making the playoffs. Right now, this is what the line looks like on paper. Broderick Jones at left tackle, Mason McCormick is at right guard, Troy is at tackle, and I think the Steelers should invest in through the draft or by getting a small pickup in a swing tackle. But besides that, I like where this unit is headed, and then Jalen Warren will be the #1 back leading the way. I can't wait to see what he can do with nobody ahead of him holding him back, and Kenneth Gainwell is interesting as a backup option as well. I think overall the main thing that Steelers fans are just so tired of is mediocrity. Now, if you watch my channel, you've probably heard me say this a million times as a Browns fan, but going above 500 and making the playoffs every year for 2 decades straight is far from mediocrity. But from what I've seen across social media and all the lost souls that are Steelers fans living in Ohio, I'm just kidding, people are tired of barely being above 500. I almost feel like people would rather see the Steelers lose and try to build for something than to constantly be a first or second round playoff exit. And Aaron Rodgers definitely does not take this team to the heights that everyone wants. In fact, he is just probably going to make the Steelers repeat this long cycle again. I guarantee if you plug Rodgers in with Tomlin and the weapons this offense has, he could go 10-7, and that is why I really feel like this experiment could be a big trap. But if the plan is to get him to let Jackson Dart sit on the sideline and learn and gain experience, then that is totally fine. Because the Packers did that with Jordan Love when Rodgers was still the quarterback, and that seems to have worked out just fine. And looking at who the Steelers will be facing in 2025, of course they will play all the AFC North teams, which is going to be a dogfight, but outside of that, things don't look that bad in my opinion. They have matchups against the Titans, the Falcons, the Panthers, the Saints, the Colts. Funny enough, I think the Steelers can go 10-7 at the minimum, no matter who the quarterback is. But that's really all I have to say for this video. I'm very curious to hear what you guys think about this entire situation. And if you made it to this point and enjoyed, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe, because your support truly does mean the world. And also, let me know what you'd like to see next. And until then, I will see you all later.
Let's flip it and look at Pittsburgh, because they brought in both those guys. They used both of those guys, and Russell was banged up early in the year. Fields gets an opportunity, and he did well with it. Russell ultimately kind of takes over the job, and we saw a little of Fields as it went along. But they let both those guys go. They signed Mason Rudolph, and now the conversation is surrounding Aaron Rodgers. Is that the landing spot? Rodney, what do you think? Aaron Rodgers and Pittsburgh, how does that marriage look to you?
I don't like it, man. And I've been saying this for the last couple of years. And you think about Aaron Rodgers, when he's out there playing, coach, we're literally looking at him, and every time he drops back, we're holding our breath. Every time a defensive lineman is chasing him, we're thinking, oh, holding our breath, nervous because we think he's going to go down. If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, why would you want to go back and get a guy that's 40-something years old, a guy that's going to be a pain in the butt in the locker room? It just makes absolutely no sense. And Coach, this is one of the surprises for me, because I'm so used to the Pittsburgh Steelers doing things a certain way. If he doesn't want to join the Pittsburgh Steelers, then I would just forget about him, move on, and keep it moving. I wouldn't have allowed this to become such a distraction like it's becoming.